While most of us were soaking up time with friends and loved ones, attending holiday parties, and ringing in the new year, others spent their holiday season in a knockdown, drag-out brawl on Twitter that seems to have fractured the MAGA base. The whole thing started when Vivek Ramaswamy, the former GOP presidential candidate and current Elon Musk sidekick at Doge, posted a tweet basically trashing white American culture, contrasting it with that of immigrant families, and using the comparison as an example for why American tech companies prefer to hire engineers from elsewhere. The fallout has been both hilarious and illuminating. First, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics. Welcome to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. It's good to be back with you in the new year. Before we dive in today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and of course, ring that notification bell so you never miss one of my episodes. Okay, so first, the tweet heard round the world. Like, this thing is still going, guys. He posted this like a week and a half ago, and I'm still getting tons of this fight in my newsfeed. Like, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Vivek said the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, LOL. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth in boomer caps. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympian champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. We're going to circle back to these strays he's throwing for TGIF in a minute. Fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch these TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity and their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chillin', more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. He continued, most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raise their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent, and if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it with a bunch of American flag emojis. You would have thought he burned a MAGA flag and the American flag at the same time. By the way, people freaked out over this tweet, which I think actually has a lot of very good points to it I want to discuss today. I do think he really misses the mark on one thing, though, which is that he seems to think there is this dichotomy where a person who is popular, who is a jock, who is socially well-liked, is inherently not going to be a nerd, is not going to be as academically successful, and the kid that is awkward and weird and wears glasses and doesn't have as many friends but does science competitions is super smart, when really research doesn't back that up. Actually, most research around intelligence shows that typically people who are intelligent also have social intelligence. They are also well-liked. They tend to be involved in a lot of extracurriculars. So he's playing up this like very one-dimensional caricature type from pop culture and media, which is interesting because he's criticizing us relying too much on pop culture and media, and I do think he's totally wrong on that front. I also just have to say, like, did you have to smoke TGIF? Because he really came for all of my favorite childhood shows, including Boy Meets World, which I, to this day, think is one of the best shows ever created. But one thing he really got wrong is that America does not venerate Corey Matthews, okay? If you're gonna criticize white culture, at least get it right, at least come correct.
Nothing makes me sadder than realizing that Corey Matthews would have been an incel in the basement if it wasn't for Topanga. Corey was a hater. Let me elaborate. So I'm rewatching Boy Meets World right now, and Corey was not a good boyfriend to Topanga at all. We have teen Topanga walking all the way to Corey's house in the rain, abandoning her parents to be with Corey. Her proposing to him at graduation. Her giving up Yale. Why did you give up Yale? All to be with this whiny little boy, because all he do was whine, for real. Corey was not putting in no work behind Topanga. All he did was whine and talk about how much better she was than him and how all of this and the third. Don't believe me? Go watch the show. Like, seriously. It's just so sad to my childhood ego, man. Because I'm just like, dang, I thought Corey and Topanga were it. The way Sean used to be hyping them up, they were it. But nah, Corey was just a certified hater. He low-key hated Topanga. Like, honestly, he was jealous of her. And he was a cheater.
Like, I know you weren't talking about that Corey Matthews. We hate Corey Matthews. He was a loser. We love Topanga, okay? We venerate Topanga, who was a valedictorian, a brainiac, who was popular and beautiful and even got into Yale, and who was also a hard worker and later on became very successful in her career. So I just think he got this part twisted. Anyways, on to the actual meat of the subject, which I know is not Boy Meets World. Now, I'm not going to repost everything I saw because a lot of the backlash against this tweet ended up being very overtly racist in ways I don't want to promote or repeat. A lot of it was directed at Indians and Asian Americans in particular. You can go to Twitter and see it for yourself, okay? It's all over. I don't think I need to bring that trash here, but just know that that was a lot of the context of the response. Others were not racist in their remarks and rebuff of him, but they were very triggered. One person said, he basically said, America sucks, import more people. And people immediately noticed the hypocrisy around this, right? Because what he basically said is that white America doesn't really have its act together. They're not strivers. They're not really working to compete or to achieve. They've gotten entitled. They've gotten slack, and they need to like pick it up, you know, pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, which is exactly the same kind of smoke this base has for literally everybody else. But when somebody tries to hold up a mirror to their face, they did not like it. Here's one meme that said, Black Americans are lazy, have bad culture, and need to work harder like Asians. And the MAGA base is smiling. And then white Americans are lazy, have bad culture, and need to work harder like Asians. And the MAGA base is furious. And somebody said it was all fun and games when the target was Black Americans, which is just so true, right? They have had a lot to say about the Black community for some time. A lot of it has been warranted in some ways. But if you're going to have that kind of conversation with other people, you need to be able to clean up your own house first, too. One person said, Vivek is tweeting about how we need Asian immigrants because Americans are bad parents who raise dumb kids. And I'm not sure this guy has a big future in Republican politics. Somebody else responded and said, one of my favorite pastimes when non-white Republicans find out their base is comically racist. Now, if you're wondering what Trump was doing during this MAGA civil war, he did eventually weigh in, and he seems on Vivek's side, to his credit. But at first, while this was really breaking out, he was posting memes of himself dressed as Santa driving a sleigh, which was just so funny. He is the funniest president of all time. I'm not a fan, but I do enjoy the entertainment. But while Trump took his sweet time getting involved in this debate, Elon Musk dove head first in. He was tweeting up a storm. He said the immigration hot button topic is the biggest DKE situation I've ever seen. People were furious with him. They really acted like Elon Musk was a total turncoat. He continued trying to explain himself, but it wasn't doing any good. He said we should greatly increase legal immigration and bold of anyone who is hardworking, honest, and loves America. Every such person is an asset to the country, but massive illegal immigration of people we know nothing about is insane. People were pointing out this has been his stance. This is him in 2023. And yes, that has been his stance and that has been Trump's stance, but they have had that stance quietly, whereas their mass deportations, anti-illegal immigrants talking points have been much louder. And I really have said for some time, I don't think their base is distinguishing. Okay. If you really want an expansion of legal immigration, if your only issues with people coming here illegally, then you would just be demanding that we reform our really, really stupid, ridiculous immigration system and make it easier for people to come here legally. But that's never what they've been doing. And so to me, it's always been very, very overtly obvious that it is just an anti-immigrant sentiment for a large portion of this base. Elon continued to dig in his heels. He said, this is the right position for those who want America to win, for those who want America to lose for their own personal gain. I have no respect, zero, but he was getting ratioed on Twitter, you guys. And he was not taking getting ratioed by his own base on his own platform very well at all. In fact, he threatened to change the Twitter algorithm after a number of smaller accounts ratioed him. He also called the Republican base, don't say that word. I have to convey what happened. So one person said, so basically the right split into two factions, tech right and right. And the tech right is like, hey, we need H-1B visa people to do the jobs. And the right was like, no, you need to hire Americans. And the tech right is like, but you guys are retarded. And the right is like, well, you don't train us. And the tech right is like, you can't out-train being retarded. And while all this was going on, we learned some people really don't like Indians. And Elon Musk responded to this and said, that pretty much sums it up. So yeah, it was a total bloodbath. And again, I don't think it's one that's going to stop anytime soon. I think to the credit of the Republican larger right-wing apparatus and to Elon, at least on the right, you do have open debates about subjects still. I don't think you'd see this kind of conversation happening on the left where they very much have a like fall into line, toe the party talking point, don't deviate a second. And if you do that in any way, shape, or form, you're cast out immediately. I do think you still have a much better sense of free speech and open debate happening on the right. So while this is an interesting split happening amongst the base, it is a healthy thing that it's happening. I just do want to be clear about that. Now, like I said, a lot of the responses to this and a lot of the debate was becoming very racist, and that was being directed at Indian Americans in particular, who have largely, I think, flown under the radar when it comes to the entire immigration debate for some time. And there are a lot of Indian Americans who are in the GOP, particularly prominent Indian members of society who have backed Trump and who have even been appointed to his cabinet. And a lot of them seemed very distressed by this, obviously, but very surprised that this was happening. Here's one he posted: I'm deeply questioning my decision to support the Republican Party after witnessing the persistent and dehumanizing attacks directed at me and my community by individuals who, despite hiding behind a veneer of respectability, openly harbor and amplify racist ideologies. I've tried to hold on to the belief that these voices represent a vocal minority, not the broader values of the party, but time and again, I am disheartened as accounts with massive followings, many of them wielding significant influence, parrot unhinged conspiracy theories, and perpetuate overtly racist tropes without consequences. And I don't know, I just thought this was really ironic and odd. It reminds me of that quote. I actually pulled up my phone because I couldn't remember exactly how it went, but the quote says, I never thought leopards would eat my face, sobs woman who voted for the leopards eating people's faces party. And like, I just can't have a ton of sympathy for these people because, again, it's been pretty overtly obvious that there is and I don't think it's the entire MAGA base. I certainly don't think it's the entire like conservative right-wing movement, but there's far too much of it. Okay. There's far too high of a percentage of people who are racist and who are very vocal about that. And that has been sort of swept under the rug or explained away with the anti-immigration stances, right? We don't hate immigrants. We don't just like people. We just want it to be legal. We just don't like illegal immigration. But the further you poke into that, the further you actually make them explain themselves, the more you see that that's not true. And there actually is just a lot of racist sentiment that is on the right now that they need to deal with. They need to push those people out. But I can't take you seriously if you ignored all those dog whistles. And some of them weren't even dog whistles. Some of it has just been so on its face because you were okay with it when it was directed at other people, but now it's being sent towards Indians. All of a sudden you have a problem. This person said it perfectly. They quote tweeted him and said, racism against Mexicans was okay. Racism against Haitians was okay. Racism against Puerto Ricans was okay. Racism against Black people was okay. But now that it's directed at you, it's a problem. So when Trump said immigrants are poisoning the blood of America, did you think you were exempt? This was another example. This girl Anna posted on Twitter and said, I officially regret my vote for Trump. Nobody said anything on the campaign trail about attacking legal immigrants or tossing out H-1B employees. But yes, they did. Trump in an actual debate performance went after Haitians, made up stories about them eating people's pets. Those were legal immigrants. You recognize that, right? Or you didn't bother because you don't actually care about their immigration status. You just thought they looked like illegal immigrants, so it was okay for him to attack them. Another person quote tweeted her and said, I get it. It was really subtle messaging with a picture of a Trump rally where they're all holding up mass deportation now signs. Dr. Daryl Scott, who is a friend of mine, he's been on my show before. I really like him. He's a very close ally of Trump's, and I think he worked in the first administration, but he posted Vivek Vivek's tweet and said a lot of the same people who are upset about American culture being criticized were in agreement when Black culture was being criticized and couldn't understand why Blacks couldn't handle the truth. So obviously I find the racial attacks within this debate very upsetting. It's something that has turned me and many other people off from the right. It is something that I think they really have to grapple with. But like I said, I'm not really surprised by any of this, so I don't think I would be covering this topic if that were all there is to say, but there is so much more. I think what was actually so interesting about this debate is it put on full display something that has been pretty apparent to people like me for some time about the MAGA nationalist movement, but that I think many people who aren't as involved in politics haven't been as privy to. And that is this actual stance against meritocracy. Okay. I have said for many, many years that Trump and therefore the MAGA movement are not capitalistic, right? They have a lot of very, very anti-capitalist platforms and principles. They are actually very opposed to many of the foundations of America that have made our country great. I don't think they have a very good grasp on economics. And that's true for people on the left as well. Okay. Americans as a whole do not have a very good economic education. But I think what's driving this on the right is the exact same sentiment that is driving the socialist, communist, call it whatever you want, progressive movement of the left. There is a sense of wanting the government to come in and be your daddy. There is a sense of wanting to not have to deal with reality. You don't want to have to compete. You don't want to have to work hard. You don't want to have to acknowledge that there is a scarcity of resources. And you have this delusional childlike belief that the government can come in and skew that reality for you in your favor. And on the left, this is manifested in things like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which I think the right has very justly called out because DEI has always been a Trojan horse that masquerades as a movement that's about racial justice, but that really, when you dig into it, is just straight communism. They do not want equality. They want equity. They don't want equality of opportunity. They want equality of outcomes. And that's what it's always been about, is about elevating some people over others based on this person having more and you want to give to this person who has less, versus what America has traditionally been based in, which is individualism and a meritocracy and competing, right? You're not entitled to anything but an opportunity. But this country was always based on the promise that if you come here and you work hard and you compete against others, you can get ahead and that you will reap the rewards of that. So the right was very justly calling these things out, working to end some of these programs, especially in public school systems and other areas of higher education. But really, when you look at their discourse around Vivek's tweet, it becomes very, very evident quite quickly that what they actually were mad about was that white people weren't included in those DEI measures. This guy said, so you want me to not hire a high-performing, hardworking, and skilled Indian, and you want me to hire an American even if that person is not capable, lacks skills, and is entitled. So you do support DEI. I thought you hated it. Austin Peterson, my dear friend, was such a breath of fresh air in this conversation. Someone said to him, so not only are our kids in competition with others in their country, but now the rest of the world's children as well? No pressure on them, right? Someone is always going to be better than you, and you are always going to be better than someone else, but having a fair chance would be nice. Yes, someone is always going to be better than you, and you're always going to be better than somebody else. And some people have different skill sets or different advantages that you aren't given, but you're not entitled to take from them. You're not entitled to prevent their accessing opportunities because you don't want to compete and keep up. Austin quote tweeted her and said, this is not nice to hear, but you need to hear it. You are in competition with everyone else in the world. No government is powerful enough to stop that. Someone else said to him, working 80 hours in a week is a thing you do temporarily when extraordinary circumstances arise. It's not the way free men live. These people are so spoiled. They are so very, they're not even that removed from what life was like before capitalism and before America. And yet they have completely no idea what that life looked like, how hard people had to work, how much time they spent working, what that type of labor they had to do looked like. Newsflash, it was a lot harder. It was a lot more manual labor. You had to actually make sure you had enough food and actual resources to keep you warm. Nobody was delivering burritos to your door. But they are so shortly removed from that, they feel entitled to have a way of life without working hard. And they are mad that other people are zealously trying to come here just to access that same opportunity to to work hard, who won't complain one bit if they have to work a lot of hours. They would be glad to do it, glad to have the opportunity, glad to access the kinds of salaries and payments that you can get for your labor in America, which is still outpacing the vast majority of the rest of the world, okay? But you don't think you should have to work. That's what's so crazy about this to me. Austin said, working 80 hours a week is absolutely how free men live. It's how free men made it to today. It's how we survived for centuries. It's how we built civilization. Leisure time is a good byproduct of capitalism, but that's a new invention relative to history. And strong men will always be spearheading initiatives for their families, whether that's in or outside a factory or any other place of work. The work never ends, and no government will ever be able to fully set aside the laws of nature, only subsidize it briefly through debt-based spending, which is going to come crashing down on your heads. This is what I mean, though, about the entitlement, about the belief that the government can come in and like rig things in your favor so that you don't have to be an adult and actually wake up every day and go out and work and try to pursue your own passions and dreams and have to contend with the laws of nature. It's utterly ridiculous to me. This girl said, as I suspected, I'm finding out that a lot of y'all don't support meritocracy. What you're looking for is DEI for white people. The DEI war was not in the principle of hating equity movements, but on the principle of not being included, which is a whole bar. Another person said, everyone loves a meritocracy until they find out they're an idiot. I love that. And I saw somebody else post this meme. This whole debate was provoking a lot of people on the right to point out that we have a woke right too, okay? We've already been talking about the woke left. The woke right is there every bit as much as the woke left, and they suck just as badly and in many of the same overlapping ways. This meme somebody posted has a person eating dinner that says fascism, another one that's eating dinner and it says communism, and father figure saying, gee, you two have a lot in common. It's horseshoe theory over and over and over again. Nationalist and socialist end up being, they go so far left and right, they end up being at about the same spot. Nationalists are just right-wing commies. This is what I've always said. Nationalism is not patriotism. Nationalism is an entire ideology complete with really, really bad economic philosophies that are very, very similar to socialist and communist ideologies. They don't want to compete. They don't want equal opportunity. They want equal outcomes. And they're driven by jealousy and greed and wanting to be coddled and told that their own mediocrity is not their fault. Vivek hit a sore spot with this post because of that, but he was spot on. And I just want to give you one more example because it really was interesting watching the nationalist influencers have a meltdown over this. This guy, Josiah Lippincott, who's a particularly terrible person. I mean, he really just, you can go look at his Twitter see for yourself. But he said, I had a rock star application for college, near perfect SAT score, perfect AP scores on 7 different tests, Eagle Scout, congressional internship, varsity athlete, but I spent my summers doing manual labor for long hours, 100 hours a week, Vivek, because, hey, that was the only work available that paid. Not one major American firm ever tried to recruit me for anything, much less cultivate my talent. Like, he literally has like a very basic resume and thinks that they should have just come and plucked him out. Some company, some entrepreneur should just take time out of their day to sort through your stupid college admissions and come and find you and train you to be a good employee versus hiring the person who had enough gumption to just become a good employee on their own. This guy said, how can you tell that someone has never actually been exposed to top tier talent? They think the best companies in the world should be reaching out to recruit and train them based on a handful of mid-tier accomplishments that wouldn't even pass a first round hiring screen. And like, literally, look at this guy's comments, okay? This is something in response to him. They said, the retaking of our birthright and homeland started on Christmas Day, 2024. And he said, based. Like, why do you think that you are entitled to these jobs? You don't have a birthright to be successful. You have a birthright that you have the opportunity to work really hard and be successful, but you're not entitled to it. Where did you get this? I've said it before, I'll keep saying it. Boy moms are going to be the death of civilization. Stop raising men like this. I loved Armand in response to him on Twitter said, why aren't tech companies trying to convince Hillsdale poli-sci PhDs to learn software engineering so they can hire them? Like, do you listen to your self-talk? Another person quote tweeted him and said, having known you in college and seen you recently, have you considered it might be your personality and the appallingly nasty and unappealing way you conduct yourself, even compared to many of your nationalist peers? Just a thought. Another person in his comment said, as a white male born in the rural United States, I cannot tell you how whining your post is to me. I've worked in tech for 34 years. I don't have a degree at all. Want a job in technology? Learn it. It's that simple. It's the closest thing on earth I've ever seen to a meritocracy. I don't care what gender you are, who you love, what color you are, who you worship, where you're from, or any other irrelevant trait. what can you do? That's all I care about. The people getting hired to technology jobs, learn technology before they got the job. Take a class if you want to, join a boot camp, hell, watch a YouTube tutorial, do just about anything other than continue whining. And I'm so with him. My husband has a good job in tech, and guess what? Didn't go to school for tech, taught himself tech, developed websites on his own, started successful publications on his own, worked his way into tech. You can do it. And my husband is a white male, by the way. The actual problem is not enough white males are pursuing these career paths. They're not even getting degrees. They're not going to trade schools. They're not learning these skills. You are being outpaced by other countries, and no amount of protectionism and a false sense of security from a government is going to get rid of that factor for you. It's still going to come down in your head. You're basically, when you pass anti-trade, anti-immigrant type policies, all you're actually doing is ensuring America is like now competing with one hand tied behind our back with the rest of the world. It is simply economically illiterate to oppose the brain draining of other countries. The fact that the best and brightest want to come here is a very, very good thing. And you don't want to see what happens to a country, what happens to an economy, what happens to your individual options and opportunities when that stops being the case. As my friend Alex posted, he posted this chart, which if you've never seen it, you need to zoom in and look at it, because this is what our actual immigration system looks like. This is how you have to go to come here legally. Look at these flowcharts. Look how difficult and convoluted this is. This is insane. He said, U.S. immigration restrictions are the most anti-meritocracy policies today. They are intended as affirmative action for native-born Americans. This map of the legal immigration system deserves as much contempt as a syllabus for a DEI training seminar. Richard Hania also posted and said, immigrants are 16% of the population. In America, they are responsible for 23% of patents, 46% of Fortune 500 founders, 40% of Nobel Prizes, 44% of unicorn founders, with India being the largest country. Like you cannot deny that immigrants are a tremendous net positive for our country. And the fact that you don't want to compete with them has everything to do with you, not them. The fact that you need to like hold people back so that you can get ahead, I just think it's pathetic. I really do, especially when you have been born with more privilege than anybody in the history of ever. If you've been born into the United States, you've been given so much opportunity, so many advantages. And the fact that you're getting like circles ran around you by people who are coming from India, it speaks volumes. And I kept seeing a lot of people in like the MAGA right arguing that essentially this program is a way for American companies to undercut American workers, and that the only reason they want to hire people from other countries is because they can pay them like pennies, okay? But then I saw people posting charts like this, right? This guy says, I just looked up for myself. You couldn't find Americans to do these jobs at Twitter. And he lists all of these STEM tech software-based jobs at Twitter, all of which you'll notice have very high salaries, all well into the six figures. And I said, these are really good jobs with high salaries Americans want and are qualified for, or these companies are just hiring immigrants to do these jobs so they can pay them low wages. Like, you have to pick one. Both of those things cannot be true. And it does not appear that it's true that they are just trying to hire them to pay them lower wages. They cannot find the workforce that they need in America. And people have been blowing the whistle about this for over a decade. Okay, this is not like news breaking information. Like, we have known that we are not preparing the workers for the future. With the advancements that we have seen in technology, we do not have the number of people that are directing themselves into these fields in order to fill the jobs that we need to have. And it is really bad to have unemployment. It's also really bad to have jobs you cannot fill in an economy. Both are actually very, very bad, and you will feel the effects of it in your own life when that happens. Obviously, the problem here is not with immigrants. Although I do think you can have very fair discussions about how we need to reform our immigration system. I've done a lot of work around this. I'll link a few of my previous videos if you want to get more into the meat around immigration policy. But I think what actually stands out to me most in this conversation is the failure of our school system. As this woman said in response to Vivek, sorry guys, wait, no, I'm not sorry. Vivek is right. We bitch about our education system and colleges, but nothing has been done about it. I think it's time to realize our kids' education is not what it should be. And it's not. Okay, I can't stand teachers' unions. I can't stand people who are still out here simping for the public school system. It's atrocious. It's not meant to make you competitive. It's not meant to make you think. It's meant to make you a little sheep who will go along with whatever your government wants to do to you. We have to have school choice in this country. We cannot just keep throwing money at this problem. We've tried that. It does not work. You have to give parents an opportunity to get their kids out of these schools and get them into institutions that will actually teach them to think, that will teach them how to think, that will give them the resources they need to build a successful life and to hopefully be prepared to compete in the industries where jobs are going to be created in the very near future. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity to do this. We're in January. That means states are starting sessions. I know Tennessee has a bill coming up right away to try to pass school choice. I think they'll be the first of many. You got to pay attention, guys. If you care about this, I don't care if you have kids or not, you have to pay attention to this issue. We have to fix the American education system. Nothing gets better until Americans get smarter. This is May Day. And if you don't show up and call and demand this, trust me when I say the monetary interest, your tax dollars being used by the teachers unions against you, they will be there. And they will be putting on the pressure heavily. You have to fight back. We have to get school choice. This is one thing I think Trump has gotten unequivocally right. He is so correct to push for school choice. He's so correct to push for getting rid of the Department of Education. This whole thing is rotten. I like this guy pointed out. He said, did you know that the National Education Association, the National Council of Teachers of English, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, and many other groups who drive education policy all oppose allowing students to learn and progress at different rates? Like, your entire school system has been overtaken by this anti-meritocracy mentality, by the woke left, by the woke right, who don't want people to have to compete, like literally. And then he posted a bunch of screenshots. He said, if you care about homegrown American talent, you also need to ask why our schools refuse to nurture that talent. And he posted just a handful of headlines over the past couple of years. One says, in the name of equity, California will discourage students who are gifted at math. The new framework aims to keep everyone learning at the same level for as long as possible. Here's another one from New York Times. Desegregation plan, eliminate all gifted programs in New York. A group appointed by Mayor Bill de Blasio proposed seismic changes to the nation's largest school system. This stuff has been happening for years. Like, we could go all day with these kinds of headlines. They're not outliers. The Seattle Times, why Seattle Public Schools is closing its highly capable cohort program. Instead of saying some kids get ahead and we should prioritize those kids and make sure that they get the resources they need and that they get tracked into successful pathways that end with them being equipped to fill very good jobs, instead they're trying to hold everybody back to make kids who can't keep up feel better. Here's the Detroit Free Press. Troy School Board eliminates middle school honors math classes despite parental outrage. You have to gut it. You have to get school choice. This thing is not going to right itself. It's not going to fix itself. It's just not going to happen. And this is just on top of really bad policies over the years, things like No Child Left Behind, where they just keep pushing kids forward even when they can't do the work. You now have a significant portion of Americans who are functionally illiterate. I'm so sorry, but I think at this point, if you are still simping for public schools in this country, you're a clown. Fix the schools. Give parents power, give them their tax dollars back, let them get to work ensuring that Americans can keep up. Obviously, I think the Trump, Elon Musk, Vivek faction of the GOP is completely correct, but I also think they've cultivated a base that truly does hate immigrants, a lot of them, okay, that really does want daddy government to come adult for them. And Vivek's message of fix your own homes was right, but it isn't surprising that the space, which has smoke for everybody else, didn't want to look in the mirror when it got held up to them. So the question now is, will the common sense approach to immigration win out, ensuring America's future success, or will the leopards yet again devour the faces of the people that thought they could harness them? It's really TBD at this point. Okay, guys, I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to like my video, subscribe to the channel if you've not already, and if you want even more content, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok.